They thought she couldn't understand a single word they whispered across that polished boardroom table. They mocked her, dismissed her, even called her something no one should ever hear, right in front of her. What they didn't know was that every insult, every smirk, every servant comment was sealing their own fate. Because the woman they underestimated wasn't just sitting there quietly, she was calculating the moment everything would change. And when it did, a $700 million empire would crumble in seconds. But what pushed her to finally end it all? Comment and tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Before the world knew her as the woman who could bring down a $700 million empire, Maya Ellison lived a life defined by relentless discipline. Every morning began the same way, silent, focused, intentional. The kind of routine built not from comfort, but from years of proving her worth in rooms where people like her were never expected to lead. As the CEO of Ellison Global Renewables, she carried herself with the calm strength of someone who had fought for every inch of progress she'd ever made. Maya's days were long, often starting before sunrise. Reports, global negotiations, internal reviews, nothing escaped her attention. Her assistant, Kiana Brooks, knew this better than anyone. Kiana admired her for more than her title. She admired Maya's ability to stay composed in a world that judged her before she ever spoke. A black woman running a global company wasn't just rare. It was unsettling to the people who believed power belonged only to them. Even on the private jet heading toward Beijing, Maya remained the picture of quiet determination. Stacks of documents spread neatly across the table, every clause and contract line committed to memory. The upcoming merger with Zio Industries was supposed to be historic, a partnership that would reshape the future of clean energy across continents. Zio Ming, the man leading the negotiation on their side, was known for brilliance and arrogance. His reputation for traditional leadership values was whispered about in corporate circles, but Maya had dealt with worse. Men like him underestimated her before even learning her name. As the jet descended into Beijing, the city stretched beneath the clouds like a maze of possibility and danger. Maya looked out at the skyline, steady and unreadable. She wasn't nervous, she was prepared. Yet somewhere in the back of her mind, a quiet instinct warned her that this meeting would test more than her business strategy. It would test her dignity, her restraint, and every lesson she had learned about surviving in spaces not built for her. She stepped off the plane with flawless poise, surrounded by flashing cameras and waiting officials. Kiana walked a step behind her, alert but confident. Everything seemed normal, professional, routine. But beneath the polished greetings and formal handshakes, something darker lingered. Tiny shifts in tone, glances that lasted a little too long, smiles that didn't reach the eyes. Maya didn't know it yet, but this trip would push her further than any boardroom ever had. And the first crack in the facade was only moments away. From the moment Maya stepped into the luxury sedan waiting on the tarmac, the shift in energy was subtle but undeniable. Zio Ming's confident smile carried an edge she recognized instantly, a man accustomed to power, unaccustomed to sharing it. He greeted her politely in English, but behind each word was a tone that suggested she was there to be tolerated, not respected. As the car pulled away from the airport, his eyes flicked toward her several times, evaluating, measuring, assuming. Maya kept her expression calm, but beside her, Kiana noted every glance, every dismissive gesture from Ming's entourage. She quietly activated the small recording device clipped inside her jacket, not because she expected trouble, because she recognized the signs of it. The city lights blurred past the windows as Ming launched into a rehearsed overview of the company's impressive legacy, emphasizing their disciplined hierarchy and long-standing traditions. But as he shifted into Mandarin, assuming she couldn't follow, his tone sharpened. The words were quiet yet cutting, references to American attitudes, inexperienced female leadership, and a remark about outsiders knowing their place. Maya listened without a flicker of reaction. Understanding a language was a form of power, and he had just gifted her insight into how he intended to treat her. By the time they arrived at Zio Industries' headquarters, Maya had already begun mentally recalculating her approach. The towering glass building reflected the cool Beijing sky like a monument to unchecked ambition. Inside, hallways lined with portraits of stern-faced men told a clear story. This was a dynasty built on legacy, not merit. As Ming guided her through the corridors, he continued his commentary, switching fluidly between English and Mandarin, polite compliments in one language, veiled insults in the other. But he didn't know she understood both. In the grand boardroom, Chairman Jiao greeted her with impeccable formality. His bow was respectful, but his eyes skimmed past her as though she were a temporary inconvenience rather than the leader of a company worth billions. The initial meeting flowed smoothly until subtle comments from other executives began to reveal a shared sentiment. Questions weighted toward undermining her expertise, suggestions that decisions be validated by senior men, and small smiles exchanged whenever she spoke too confidently. Yet Maya responded with precision. Each statistic, each forecast, each technical breakdown delivered with flawless authority. Their underestimation only sharpened her focus. Hours later, she and Kiana returned to their hotel, exhausted but alert. Maya replayed every slight in her mind, not as a burden, but as data. Kiana uploaded the day's recordings, documenting the dual-language insults and the uncomfortable shifts in tone whenever Maya asserted her leadership. They were supposed to finalize the merger the next evening at an exclusive dinner, but Maya sensed something heavy beneath the surface. And she was right. The dinner that night unfolded under chandeliers and polished crystal, but the elegance couldn't hide the arrogance. With Chairman Zhao absent, Ming grew bolder. He interrupted her mid-sentence, dismissed her expertise with a wave of his hand, and exaggerated his accomplishments with a confidence that bordered on delusion. Western investors seated nearby seemed uneasy but stayed silent, too afraid to jeopardize their positions. Then came the moment that shifted everything. As servers cleared the second course, Meyer excused herself to step aside briefly. That was when Ming, emboldened by wine and surrounded by admirers, leaned toward his executives. In Mandarin, believing himself safe, he said it, the slur, the label, the word meant to dehumanize her entirely. Black servant! The table erupted in laughter, not loud laughter, but the kind that spreads quietly from cowardice, not humor. A few guests glanced nervously around, but no one challenged him. No one stopped him. No one defended her dignity, and Maya heard every syllable. She paused mid-step, the sound echoing through her like a cold blade. The humiliation wasn't new. She had experienced racism in boardrooms before, but this was different. This was global, public, deliberate. She returned to the table as if nothing had happened, her expression composed, her body steady. But inside, a decision had crystallized with perfect clarity. The partnership was already dead. Still, she waited, observed, calculated. Back in her hotel suite that night, she called Kiana and reviewed the full recordings. The evidence of disrespect was undeniable, but what they discovered next was even worse. Hidden within last-minute contract documents were new clauses that hadn't been approved, clauses designed to siphon Ellison technology into Zio Industries through offshore shells. Intentional theft. Now Maya understood everything. The insults, the power plays, the dismissiveness, they weren't just rooted in sexism or racism. They were a mask for a much larger deception. And they had underestimated the one woman capable of exposing it all. The curtain had been pulled back, and the real battle was just beginning. The night of the official summit arrived with the kind of charged stillness that feels like the air holds its breath. Maya Ellison walked into the grand conference hall with quiet resolve, knowing this room, packed with global investors, reporters, and Zio Industries executives, would become the stage for everything that had led to this moment. She had faced discrimination before, endured disrespect before, but never like this and never with stakes so high. The world was watching, and the empire that had tried to humiliate her was about to be confronted with truth it couldn't escape. Zio Ming entered moments later, wearing confidence like armor. He believed he had regained control. Word had spread that he intended to paint Maya as emotional, unstable, and difficult, familiar labels often used to tear down black women in power. Investors murmured among themselves, unsure which story to believe. Ming's eyes flicked toward Maya with a smugness so practiced it seemed etched into his bones. He had no idea what was coming. The summit began with polite introductions, carefully crafted speeches, and polished projections displayed on towering screens. But beneath the glossy surface, tension crackled like a hidden fault line. When it was her turn to speak, Maya rose slowly, every movement deliberate, her posture composed yet commanding. She didn't start with emotion. She started with facts, because she knew facts were the one language even her doubters couldn't dismiss. She displayed the original contract, clean and mutually beneficial. Then she revealed the altered version, showing the audience the hidden clauses inserted at the last moment, clauses designed to strip her company of its core technology. Gasps filled the room. Investors leaned forward, eyebrows raising, whispers spreading in quick bursts of shock and realization. Ming's expression faltered, but he still tried to regain control. He stood, attempting to dismiss her claims with a patronizing smile and an explanation about cultural miscommunication. But Maya wasn't finished. With calm precision, she played the audio recording, his voice, clear as crystal, speaking in Mandarin, mocking her leadership and calling her a black servant. The room fell silent except for the sound of his own words echoing back at him. Every face in the audience changed at once. The false politeness vanished, replaced by discomfort, disbelief, and then outrage. The mask Ming had worn so proudly began to crumble. Chairman Jiao, standing behind him, turned rigid, fury simmering beneath his calm exterior as he realized the gravity of the humiliation. Maya continued, revealing documentation of financial manipulation, forced labor linked to Zio Industries, bribes, shell companies. Evidence so complete and devastating that no rebuttal could survive it. Screens flickered with satellite images, internal memos, and encrypted emails connecting Zio Ming to the entire corrupt scheme. Investors disconnected their calls one by one. Shares of Zio Industries began plummeting in real time. Careers collapsed in seconds. Through it all, Maya didn't raise her voice once. Her power came from the weight of truth, not rage, not revenge, but unshakable certainty. But the most powerful moment arrived when she addressed the room without a single document, without a single slide, only her voice. She spoke of being underestimated her entire life, of having her intellect questioned, her authority challenged, her dignity ignored. She spoke of the thousands of black professionals who faced the same injustice but didn't have a platform like this. She spoke of how racism didn't always appear as slurs or shouting. It often wore suits, shook hands, and pretended to be professionalism. Her words landed like thunder in a room already trembling. And then she ended it, not with apology or negotiation, but with finality. She terminated the merger, effective immediately. The hall erupted. Executives scrambled. Investors panicked. Ming stared blankly, the reality of his downfall washing over him like cold water. His empire was collapsing because he had underestimated the wrong woman. As Maya walked off the stage, cameras flashing, whispers swelling like a storm, the question hung heavy in the air. If this was the fall of their empire, what would rise from its ashes next? When the summit ended and the cameras finally stopped flashing, Maya Ellison walked out of that hall knowing she had changed more than a business deal. She had exposed an empire built on entitlement, corruption, and quiet racism, the kind that hides behind polished boardrooms and diplomatic smiles. And although she left the building with the same calm posture she had carried in, something inside her had shifted, not broken, strengthened. In the days that followed, the consequences rippled across continents. Zio Industries collapsed under the weight of global scrutiny. Investors withdrew, governments launched investigations, and the world witnessed what happens when arrogance meets accountability. But for Maya, the impact wasn't measured in stock prices or headlines. It was measured in the messages she received from young black professionals, women in leadership, and people who had spent their lives unheard. They saw in her what they needed to see, proof that dignity and truth could stand against even the most powerful systems. Still, victory didn't erase the pain. The insults she endured, the racism she absorbed in silence, the knowledge that so many others faced the same disrespect without cameras or microphones, those truths stayed with her. She knew her story wasn't unique. It was part of a much larger reality that stretched far beyond boardrooms and billion-dollar deals. Her courage didn't come from fighting back. It came from refusing to let injustice define her. From using the tools she had, her intelligence, her discipline, her voice, to dismantle a structure meant to diminish her. And in doing so, she reminded the world that the cost of racism is not only moral, it's structural, economic, and deeply human. Maya returned home stronger than she left, not because she won a battle, but because she exposed one. She stood for every person who has been underestimated, disrespected, or dismissed simply for who they are. Her story became more than a corporate scandal. It became a mirror reflecting the uncomfortable truth that prejudice still shapes decisions, opportunities, and lives. And now the question remains, how many more stories like hers must unfold before the world finally learns to see beyond its own bias? If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And make sure you subscribe to Black Community Struggles for more powerful stories about justice, truth, and our community's fight to be seen. And don't forget to hit that like button. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need them most.